guys, Cousin Benny coming to you on Sunday, the 28th of July, with a look at the week ahead and some thoughts on last week. We hit a new high. What was a surprise to me was Friday we had this nice bounce off of the 10 EMA. So for now we are holding the 10 EMA and we have to watch what happens next week. We had decent volume, and for the most part there's really not much change here. Let's take a look at the spiders. Looking at the SPY, we see same thing, except that we had an outside day on Friday. Wednesday's candle was pretty ominous. We came down to the 10 EMA and bounced. We found a few buyers. More likely it was short covering towards the end of the day. And Thursday we saw two nice days with buying equaling close to what happened on Wednesday. Looking at the comp, we have a similar situation with an outside day, almost an outside day on Friday. We saw a really decent volume through the mid part of the week. Williams %R got back above the overbought level, and we are right in this Kirby area here. So we're dealing with mostly buying here and some selling. So it'll be interesting to see. We are in a bullish pattern since November of last year. So that is a certainty. So let's take a look at the defensive sectors of the S&P. We on the consumer staples, we are seeing RSI has dipped down below 50, got back above 50, but hasn't gotten back above 70. And we had a nice little candle on Friday with a bounce off the 20 period, closing just below the 10. At the 8 EMA on this chart. Let's take a look at XLU, which is looking a little bit stronger. Didn't quite get back down to the 20 period. We have this Kirby level to deal with. We have the upper Bollinger Bands. RSI is looking somewhat stronger, though volume isn't that great. We did have two green bars on Thursday and Friday. MACD continues to point higher, but the momentum is waning, as you would expect. The healthcare sector was the strongest. We broke out at new highs. We're above the Kirby levels. We're back above 70, so there's no bearish failure swing. So XLV is looking very strong, though we did make highs on lower volume, so it's a little bit suspect. MACD and slow stochastics is still pointing higher, and ADX has continued to point that we could continue to trend here. So we could stay between the 10 period and the upper Bollinger Band, so be aware of that. Let's take a look at the offensive sectors. XLF is looking a little bit weaker. We just got barely back above the 70 on the RSI and dip back down. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here at the 20, or if we continue to hold this level here and we have more volume selling with stochastics pointing lower, and MACD looks like it wants to cross over, so watch that on the XLF. I have WFC, Wells Fargo, and I'm looking for that to move a little bit lower before it sets up in a box trade. Looking at XLI, not too bad on XLI. We're still drifting lower on RSI, and volume is somewhat suspect. XLK, the technology is looking a little better, as we saw on the comp. We bounced off the 50. We're trying to get back above this Kirby level. If we do, we could see the upper Bollinger Band, and volume is decent with stochastics turning at the midpoint. Though you see in ADX the strength of trend is waning on this particular sector. XLY, consumer discretionary, flagging out here right at the 20 period. RSI is pointing upwards again. Looks like we could get higher. not much to deal with in the terms of a Kirby, but stochastics and MACD did cross and give sell signals. So this is a little contradictory, but we just need to keep an eye on it. And we're at 25, so we are trending. We could see this flag and break higher. You just have to watch price action. I'm not trading this particular sector, so taking a look at bonds for a moment. These are the yields, the 10-year, the 1 month, the 20-year. We can see yields crept back above their 20-period moving averages. The moving average is flattening out. The 5-year as well as a 2-year. Looking at the 20-year bond price, TLT, we're just under the 20 period, which is flat again. Looking for what this is going to do, what kind of signals this might give us this week as far as this doji is concerned, right in the middle of this gap down. So once again, if you're adverse to trading volatility, you don't want to be trading the 20 and the 30 year. You want to be in shorter term bonds with regard to volatility. Looking at the bullish percents, you can see that most of them are at higher ranges, though not at the highest range that we've seen in the last couple of months. The comp is trending down somewhat with price moving higher. That's interesting. Consumer discretionary is at 82, and you can read the rest of these. Finance is up here in pretty hot territory, so if you're trading finance, you want to keep that in mind. Materials is moving higher. That might be an area to watch. XLB still has some room to the upside. Staples and the S&P are both right around 85. NASDAQ again, and Telly's just above 70, and utilities above 90. So utilities were fairly strong. You want to keep an eye on that for any pull-in on price this week. Looking at the dollar, we saw exactly what we were expecting, which was a sideways volatile sessions with a retest of the lower Bollinger Band, and looking for possibly a bounce here on the US dollar coming into this week. So let's take a look at gold. We can see gold is changing trend here. We have a crossover. So watch these Kirby levels for a trade up in this range here. We are overbought, so look for a little pullback in to this level here on gold for a box trade setup, and watch this continue. DBV is the currency harvest fund. You want to see this moving higher for a move higher in the markets. This is a higher move here is bullish for stocks. Last week we were looking at the possibility of XEU pointing higher. And the reason why we thought these things, remember we were looking at the MACD histogram. We were saying that if this continues to cross over and give us a signal, that we could see a higher move on the euro, which is exactly what we got. Note where RSI is. You want to see this get back above 70 so that we don't have a bearish failure swing and a move back lower. But we are at the upper Bollinger Band, so look for this to increase in volatility as well, with the US dollar down at the lower Bollinger Bands. A reversal wouldn't be unexpected. The biotech sector, for the most part, has been the shining light over the last 3 or 4 weeks since it bottomed in June. Bullish pattern that continues to flag here, and one of the areas where it might be getting a little bit crowded, but it's still a lot of trades here. Note the lower volume on the flag. Accorda is something I've been seeing a lot of mention on Twitter and StockTwit, so this could be a little bit crowded too, but note the flag here and this level here above 38.61 that we could be seeing a completion of this cup and handle, or this could be the handle. I believe it's 2/3 of the cup could be the handle, and we could see a continuation move higher here on Accorda Therapeutics. Note the lower volume as well. Also a stock in the biotech sector related to energy, Ecopetrol, which was pointed out by Diana in our room. Note the 10 EMA bounce here. We had a crossover and a change of trend. So I would look for this, keep an eye on this on Monday, if we see a move higher here, a green bar, it could be a signal for a trade higher. If you're a breakout trader, 46.65 is your number. But I would really like to see this pull into 44.50 or so for a nice pullback reversal on EC, also in the XBI sector. Another stock in the renewables area, GPRE, Green Plains. Note we broke above this cup, small short-term cup and handle, and we're breaking higher on really good volume. So watch this as a continuation. I wouldn't buy or chase it, but a pullback to the 10 MA could be a nice entry, if not a pullback in between the two areas, the 10 EMA and the 30 period SMA, for a box trade setup in the next week. Canadian Solar is flagging out here on the 10 period. Volume is tapering off. A nice move back into a box trade setup would be nice as well, down anywhere between 1350 and 12 with a nice green bar and expanded volume for a signal. Trina Solar, another cheap stock, above $5, under 10, flagging out here on the 10 period EMA on somewhat lower volume. But we do have a bullish pattern here, so a pullback into the box setup would be nice as well here. As a hot side note, look at Berkshire Hathaway B shares in a strong uptrend since November, and set up a nice box trade on Wednesday, Thursday. Looks like we pulled back to a breakout area, so a pullback to breakout. Looks like we could continue to move higher on Berkshire Hathaway B. eBay was one of the things I was looking at last week. We were looking at this gap down and the possibility of a bounce in this range here, a multiple bottom, which is what we saw on Friday. Outside day. I'd be interested to see where we go from here. Let's take a look at the Bollinger Bands on this. We haven't reached the lower Bollinger Bands yet, but something to watch. Look at the standard deviation. Yeah, so we could see some further downside even though we have this outside day. Toll Brothers, the builders weren't doing that great this week. XHB, yeah, we moved lower, making lower highs just above the 50 period or the 200 period here, the red line. An observation on Chesapeake, triple top here with Scooter. This is a measure of strength similar to Investors Business Daily, where it ranks the relative strength to other stocks in its group, and it continues to move higher on lower volume for the most part, but we did make a new high here and close to these recent highs. Just an observation on CHK. Triple D, we're in this range, and the range is starting to tighten. We keep an eye on this to see which direction we're going to go. Let's take a look at Ichimoku, and we're sitting right on top of the cloud with price. Looks like it wants to emerge upside, so I'd be watching for a move higher on 3D Systems. This is still a bullish pattern. We had this nice two twists on the Kumo. We had another one recently, so that's something to be aware of. And we have this Kirby level to deal with here. Standard deviation, as you would expect, is moving sideways. MACD is squeezing, pretty much flat. Watch for a momentum break one way or another to trade this. It could further squeeze, so keep that in mind as well. Some of the pharmaceutical stocks, remember XLV is doing quite well, so keep an eye on these. BMY, Pfizer is above the cloud, so keep an eye on these. Merck, yeah, these are looking stronger now that they've moved sideways. Possibly we could stay in this range though, so keep in mind that we could stay inside of this range. Okay, but we're getting back above this Kirby level. Let's take a look at Celgene. Celgene new highs. Note where Chiku is. BIIB, I believe, broke down last week on Friday, but we are sitting on top of the Kumo. Pretty much sideways action. Chiku is back above price, so that's somewhat bullish, but really nothing to trade here. It's not giving any edge. Amgen's looking somewhat stronger. Above the Kumo, we had this little flag down to Tenkan-sen, and we're flagging out off of these levels here. Note recent highs, and Chiku is above the cloud, so that's interesting as well on Amgen. Jumping over to refiners, note where Vail is. We had a crossover. Looks like we could have a change of trend here. We had a crossover 2 weeks ago, and we are holding right above the 10 period EMA. Let's take a look at the Ichimoku. We're right at Kumo, so we could see some resistance here, pull back in before moving higher if this is in fact a trend change. So what you want to be looking for is a pullback into this zone right here, which would coincide with a box trade. Okay, down here at 14 for a long on Vail, or Vale, depending on how you pronounce it. AFOP is one from Mikey over in the Day Trader Bootcamp Room as well. He had a nice trade in here for the last few weeks. Note that we're about to blow off here. Looks like we're going to blow off on some sort of parabolic move. Considering the volume, this is very thinly traded. Just something I'd like to point out. Looking at fiber optics, we can see Verizon in the tele area. Nice pattern here. Higher lows. We need to get back above 51.58 to put in another higher high and get back up to these levels here. I think we'll probably get up there, being this is a fairly well-known traded stock, and it looks like we're building a nice continuation pattern here back up to these highs and possibly build a handle there and then break higher on Verizon. Let's take a look at AT&T. A low here, a higher low. We need to get back above 36.31 for this to be a continuation back up to these highs here at 38.13 that we put in April. We can see Vodafone's already built these patterns and breaking out here above these highs that we put in April. So I'd look for Verizon and AT&T to do the same thing, where they're lagging somewhat against this stock. This could continue going into the week, VOD. So back to TLT, which you guys know we've been trading. We are off of these lows here. We made a higher low on this pivot here at 107. We're right at the 10 period. I'm looking for this to turn back up and change trend. It's having a little difficulty, but I'm not surprised that it didn't just bolt above the 30 period and move higher. This is actually very constructive. And as a seasonality trade, I'm looking for lower prices on the spiders and the S&P and comp in general going into August, September. So it all depends on what happens here going into the week. Feels like we're getting exhausted up here, but you can never know. You can't go by feeling. You have to go by price action, as we said once before. Okay. Again, this is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com, where you can come and check out these strategies. The one that I use most favorably is the box trade setup, which is this video right here you can check out. Just wanted to mention also, every week I've been saying recently that this is where I put my watch list going into the week, so look for this to be updated on Monday. Also, some of my favorite links are down here towards the bottom, as well as some of the tutorial videos that many people seem to find useful going into new setups and understanding how I use certain strategies. Ichimoku in particular, the box trade, how we used it on MU. Let's take a look at MU real quick before we close, just to show you where things can go over time. As you can see, we're topping out here and we got a crossover to the downside. So I see MU moving either sideways and a base here, in which case that could be very, very constructive for a move higher, or we can see this breakdown. So watch prices taking out this low right here. If we take this out, we could see lower prices. Keep these things in mind when you go into these trades and you're following me, that you understand what I'm doing and why I'm taking certain trades. For example, here on a box trade on Yahoo, and this turned into FWFC turned into a box trade as well over time. Alright, so again, I hope this helps. We'll see you in the Day Trader Bootcamp chat room. If you're interested, you can come over and check us out. Test drive here.